Turn it up. Woo. Lean back. Woo. Kick your feet. Let it smack. From the coast to the highline pines. We've been talking about the same old lines. Big suits taking up all our time. While the rent climbs and the kids ask why. Kitchen table feels like town hall. Grandma cussing at the late night call. We don't fit in their shopping mall. So we built this show and we said it all. It's that slap.
Welcome to another episode of Oregon Voices. I'm Eric McGuire.
And I'm Catherine Watkins.
Today we are joined by Teresa Alonso Leon, the founder of Peracata Consulting and a Democratic candidate for Oregon Senate District 11, covering Woodburn, Kaiser, much of Salem in Marion County. In 2016, she became the first immigrant Indigenous Latina elected to the Oregon legislature. She served 3 terms in House District 22, the same seat that Leslie Munoz now holds. She left that seat in 2022 to run for Congress and lost, and watched the district flip Republican before Munoz won it back by 161 votes in 2024. She is back, she is running for the Senate, and her likely opponent in November is Tracy Kramer, the Republican who questioned the legitimacy of that 161 vote win. Teresa, welcome to Oregon Voices. It's so nice to have you here.
Thank you. I appreciate the invitation.
Yes. So, as we do with all of our guests, the very first thing we like to get into is kind of your roots and your background. And you have a very interesting and just amazing background to get to where you are right now today. And so I was wondering if you could share with us kind of what that background is and how it has impacted you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, most people know my story, that our family came to this country when I was 4 years old. But what people don't know, and I just started sharing this part of my story, was that I got separated from my family at the border, and I ended up being taken into an orphanage until my dad found me, and I lost my voice.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And what year is this that we're talking about?
Oh, I was 4 years old. So
Okay.
many moons ago.
Many moons ago. I shouldn't ask that. I shouldn't ask specifics. But at 4 years old, you were at the border
Yes.
into the country?
Yes. And and so my dad had to find me, and and I guess then, we were all reunited, and it's interesting because you don't really realize how much trauma impacts your life. And as a 4-year-old, I completely lost my voice. I couldn't say anything. And I would shake my head yes, shake my head no. But I knew in my heart that I would be reconnected to my family. Mm-hmm. And that happened. And I think that was probably the beginning of an interesting life. Many people who come to this country obviously want a better life for their families, and that means sacrifice. And this was one of those, I guess, sacrifices, unintentional sacrifice. But our family worked really hard. We were farm workers. We initially lived with this farmer in Clackamas. That's kind of where my dad had established a place for my mom and my dad to work. And they didn't speak English. They didn't understand about any resources. So I would say that my first time in this country was sitting in the car with my baby sister watching my parents work in the fields. And we did this in the rain, in the sun. And I, as a young person, thought, wow, my parents are amazing. They can sustain their work in all kinds of climates. I thought they were superheroes.
Yes.
And unfortunately, after about a year and a half or almost 2 years, my mom ended up having a baby during that time. And so then there was 3 kids in our family, and we were told that the farm was not meant for families and that we needed to leave. And so we got booted out because our family started growing. And then we couch surfed in the along the I-5 corridor with family members and friends. And we ended up living in a little studio apartment in Hubbard that summer. And so that was my first exposure to school, summer school. And so I got to go to summer school and experience this country's education system. And that particular time, I want to say it's the early 80s, we also had immigration raids happening. And I remember our family and our relatives, just like holding on. And I remember hearing them because they never really directly talked to kids about what's going on.
Right.
They didn't want to freak us out, but we listened. And we knew something was happening. So much so that during one of those raids, I just remember my uncles hiding under the beds and stuff. And my dad had gone to work, and I just remember everybody just shushing each other and hoping that we didn't get that knock on the door. Thankfully, that didn't happen, and we were all safe.
Right. Yeah. And so I'm trying to think about like your experience as a child.
Yeah.
Going through an experience that's so similar to what's happening right now.
Correct.
And so did that inspire you, motivate you then to jump back into politics after you'd been out for a while?
So, oh gosh. I want to say that my lived experiences definitely got re-triggered with this administration, right? In 2016 when he ran and I ran and he won and I won. And what happened during that time? He separated families. He encaged children.
Yeah. Yeah.
That definitely, it enraged me.
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine.
And I think some of it, yes, listening and watching what's happening now, yes,
Yeah.
it brought me back to those times of fear.
Yeah.
And when community came to me, said, Teresa, we need your strength. We need somebody like you who understands us to go work at the Capitol and remind people what that really means. Because not a lot of people have that experience as an immigrant. And I think publicly you're the first people I've shared that part of my story.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Because I think it's important to acknowledge truly the trauma that a lot of our families are experiencing.
Yeah.
And that needs to be elevated. And we were knocking on doors today before we came for this interview. And one of the common theme that has come up as we're knocking on doors is that a lot of our white allies are acknowledging just how awful this administration is. And when I share the things that I had done as a former legislator, it was almost like you were thinking ahead by passing the driver's license law, strengthening our sanctuary law with accountability measures, universal representation. If those bills hadn't passed, our families would be in a worse situation right now. And it's almost like I'm thinking, it wasn't like I had foresight, but I am so glad that some of my colleagues and I were thinking, we need to do something now.
Yeah.
With this, even though we have this administration that is traumatizing our families. Fast forward, he becomes our president again. And the same thing's happening, but worse. right?
Right.
And so, so to answer your question, yeah, part of it, yes. The trauma experienced absolutely fueled my wanting to come back. But it was mostly because community asked me to do it.
Yeah. I was wondering if you might take us back a little bit to 2016 and give us a little bit of insight about how the process you went through.
Yeah.
As you know, in your lived experience up to that point, you know, what you were doing, like how you, because you lived in Woodburn at that time.
I have lived in Woodburn most of my life.
Most of your life.
Yeah.
And so, like, doing whatever you were doing then.
Yeah.
And in 2016, thinking, it's time. It's time for somebody that looked like this community to represent this community.
I do want to go back, but I also, you know, one of the questions you asked is, tell us your story, right?
Yeah.
I want to go back and share some of my lived experiences.
Please do.
That I think, and I didn't know this at the time, but the injustices one experiences, sometimes you collective in your head and you don't think about it. And then then somebody says, hey, you should run for office. And then you're thinking, maybe I can fix the things that happened to our family so they don't happen again to,
Sure.
you know, our families now. So I shared that part of my history because I think it's important to, just as I mentioned, just the trauma that a lot of families are experiencing. And as you can tell, it's still,
Sure.
you know, in my heart, and it still hurts. After we were living in this apartment, my mom said, we can't live here. We need to find somewhere permanent, you know, because we had been couch surfing. So my dad found a house. And we were all excited, thinking, we're going to have our own room. Well, not quite. I can't believe that a landlord thought it was okay to rent a house to a family that had no functioning plumbing. We had an outhouse. We had to bring water in from the hose. We had no heating system. And for my parents, that was the best they could do with the money they had for our family. And this was outside of Jervis. So then I started school, elementary school in Jervis. And that's how we lived from first through fourth grade. And then we moved to Woodburn. And my mom, because I was the oldest, obviously, and I learned to speak English before all my siblings. So I was their interpreter and translator. And when we were told we needed to leave this house, we were now like, what are we going to do? We can't afford what a traditional apartment would be. And plus, there's a bunch of us. It was so hard to move into an apartment. And my dad started talking about, well, maybe we can move in with another family temporarily until we find something more permanent. And my dad had heard that from another relative that we should consider the outskirts of Woodburn. And so we drove around the outskirts of Woodburn, and we were on a street called Sleepy Hollow. And my mom said, hey, there's a little trailer house over there. And my dad's like, yeah, let's pull over and see if that's available. And my mom said, okay, mija, let's go knock on the lady's door, because there was another house, a beautiful old school house, and this most beautiful, amazing older lady came out when we knocked, and my mom said, ask her if the apartment or the little trailer house is available, in Spanish, of course. And I said, Mama, I would like to know if the little trailer house outside your house area is available. She goes, why, yes, it is. And I translated for my mom, and she said, Okay, ask her how much she wants for the little trailer house. And so, she responded back and she goes, "Oh, honey, how many of you are there?" And I said, "There's my mom, there's my dad, there's by that time there was 6 of us, including my parents, and then I had a baby sister who was born during that time, and that made us 7." And she said, "It's available," and I don't remember how much the rent was, but it was obviously something my parents could afford. But she said one thing that she mentioned was that she wanted to rent this. She was fine with renting the place to us, but she really wanted us to find a home because I was so tiny. But she was so sweet. And we lived there for, I think, a few months, and she could tell we overflowed the little
Right.
place.
Yeah.
But her property was it was maybe about an acre and a half. So all of us kids were outside playing all the time.
Right.
And then she came up to me and she said, my parents and my family call me Tere. And so and I told her Tere in English was Terry. So she said, "Terry, come here." And I went up to her and she said, "Ask your mom if they're okay if you move into my house, you and your sister, and you'll have a room you can share."
Wow.
Wow.
Oh my God.
That's amazing.
And I walked over and I told my mom, and she said, "Wow." And she became our grandma.
Yeah. Yeah.
She
Yeah.
became our honorary grandma. And so we lived there for a few years. During that time, I didn't know this, but my parents had been saving every single penny they could. And after living there for a few years, my parents said, "Teresa, we need your help." And I said, "Of course, what can I help with?" And they said, "We think we're ready to buy a house." And I said, "Okay." And they said, "Well, how do we do it?" I said, "Mom, I don't know. I don't know how we're going to do it." So
How old were you at this time?
I was probably 11 or 12 and in middle school.
Yeah.
And so we went to this real estate agency in Woodburn. Of course, nobody spoke Spanish. And there was a sweet lady who had just finished her training. And she said to us, "I'm happy to help." And so I translated and interpreted this whole process and helped my parents buy their first home.
At 11.
That is incredible.
And fast forward after I got my first degree and worked for PCC, I thought I had made it because I was making pretty good money, and my parents had only $5,000 left to fully purchase the house, and I told them I would pay that off for them,
Yeah.
and so I did that. And so now I want to share all these personal experiences happened to me. And there were a lot of injustices, right? Because think about it. So fast forward, I moved back to Woodburn in 2010. And I start thinking about how I'm going to get back to community. Because I'm also thinking about going back to grad school and everything. And my sister and I had this really awesome conversation about, maybe we shouldn't get involved with the city of Woodburn. And, because both of us always thought about how can we give back to community. And so I'm the oldest of 5. I have 2 sisters and 2 brothers. Well, technically 6. We had a little brother who died when he was 2 weeks old. And I want to honor him too. So there were 6 in total. But one of the things that I also told myself that I needed to do was that I needed to invest in myself. So I got to buy my first house. And I say my first house, so my own house. And so I bought a house in Woodburn and moved back home in 2010. And in 2012, I decided that I should become a citizen because we were eligible through the Reagan administration, and I didn't have any money to have a lawyer represent me. I said, I'm in college. I should be able to fill out the application. And I did. And I became a citizen that happened in 2011. I became a citizen in 2012. And in 2013, members of the Woodburn community started approaching me about considering an appointment with the city of Woodburn as a city council person.
Wow.
And I researched and I saw that we had only had 2 people of color on the Woodburn City Council in the city's history.
Yeah.
And we were a majority, Latinos were a majority. And I was thinking, how could that be? So when we don't have representation, we don't have people, thinking about the needs of the Latino community or even the Russian community, because, we have a large Russian community too. So I thought, okay, maybe this is a way I can give back. And I told one of my mentors, I said, so can you tell me more about what a city council member does? Right? Because I didn't know. And in combination with having conversations with mentors and me researching and I thought, okay, well, I think if I'm getting comments from community about considering this appointment, then maybe this is what I'm supposed to do now. So I went ahead and submitted, all of the documentation the city wanted and went through the whole appointment process. And there were 2 other gentlemen who were vying for that position. And by that time, I already had my master's. But, as women, we could have all the credentials, but we still question ourselves whether we're ready for this opportunity.
Yeah.
And here I am asking everybody, do you think I should do it?
Yeah.
And thankfully, I got a lot of positive reinforcement. Yeah, of course you should do it. You have a master's in public administration.
Yeah.
Like literally, this is what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And so I went ahead and Mayor Kathy Figley, appointed me. And then I became the 3rd person of color to be on the Woodburn City Council in the city's history. And I served for 3.5 years. And then in 2015, people started asking me to consider the state rep position. And I had a lot of conversations, including a conversation with former state rep Betty Comp, who also said, Teresa, you're on my short list, and I think you would be an amazing leader. And, I also, again, I questioned myself, like, what, am I ready? Is this something I should be doing? Will people support me? There's just so many questions that as women, unlike men, they're ready.
Yeah.
Somebody tells them, you should do this. They're like, okay.
No one asks them if they're ready.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
Yeah.
And so after having conversations with folks, I started thinking about all the injustices my family experienced. And I thought it's not just my family. It is many families. And I knew that too because my mom would often, because I was bilingual, she often nominated me to go help other families.
Oh,
And I interpreted for other families.
wow.
And so I got to hear and experience what other families had gone through, which in some cases were similar to ours, and in other cases, more serious than ours. And so, it just, at one point, I realized that this is definitely a way to give back to community and elevate the issues that weren't being elevated, especially farm workers. I hadn't heard a lot about legislators really elevating farm worker issues, with the exception of the driver's license.
Yeah.
But as we know, we lost that fight.
Yeah.
And when I started talking about seriously considering running for state office, that was the one thing that a lot of our community members said, please please pass a driver's license law.
Yeah.
And so that's what I ended up doing is I made a decision to go ahead and run. Then I got felt like cold water was thrown on my face because I was told that I had to raise $500,000 for my campaign.
What?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I was in shock. I mean, I've never been associated with that much money.
Yeah.
That's when it was like real. Okay, Teresa, you want to run for this seat? To run a seriously competitive seat, even though it's an open seat, you have to raise $500,000. It's a swing district, so it could go either way. And oh, by the way, your opponent has 20 more political years experience than you.
Wow.
And so I'm not one to step back after making a commitment. So I said, okay, well, if that's what it takes. And of course, everybody reminded me, you're not alone. We're going to help you raise this money, and we're going to do this together. And so, yeah, that's what we ended up doing. And one of the was several things that I made a point of making sure happened in my campaign. That we ran a multilingual campaign because that had never happened before. Mm-hmm. And so we ran Spanish, English, and Russian.
Love it.
I wanted community to see themselves in my campaign. That was really important to me. And I had never raised money before. So that was one of my most fearful things to do, is to get on, to make cold calls and ask people for money. And even my family, because I know they didn't have money.
Yeah.
I know that was gonna, and that's not something we do.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, as an immigrant, I had to remind people, I just got here. I don't have institutional knowledge. I don't have generational knowledge from families who have been here for many I don't have any of that. So I'm literally asking other immigrants, will you donate to my campaign? And thankfully, my parents, they stepped up.
Oh.
And they did a bunch of door knocking for their friends and our relatives. So we had a bunch of $5 donations and $25 donations, and they, worked really hard. And $2,000 is a lot of money for farm workers to collect. And because, you had to pick up a bunch of like what I call baby donations, but they had to knock on so many doors that I didn't do. They did. And I was just floored how involved my parents ended up getting in supporting my campaigns.
Yeah.
That I just, I was just in awe of them, that it really became a family project.
Yeah.
And I ended up winning by a landslide.
Wow. It's fantastic.
Great. And did you get up to that $500,000?
We ended up raising almost $1 million.
Get out.
Wow. That is amazing.
My opponent ended up getting $50,000 from Phil Knight.
Sounds familiar.
And so, yes. And so then we had to figure out how to raise even more money. And I'm a former member of SEIU, a local 503, my union at the time, because I was working for the state as a GD administrator. Mm-hmm. And they came together and applied for funding from the national organization, and we were able to get $50,000.
Wow.
It's amazing.
And then I was shocked to then hear that President Obama was going to endorse me.
What?
Yes, I was one of I think it was 500 or 600 people around the country that he endorsed, and I became one of them.
That's crazy.
And I was floored.
Yeah.
I could not believe it. And I said, how did he even know about me? And of course, our team had submitted whatever it is that they need to do to see if the president of the United States would be willing to endorse a candidate. And there was a few of us in Oregon who were endorsed by the president. And I just remember hearing he had submitted voice messages in case we wanted to use his voice in our marketing. And I remember hearing the messages and him saying my name.
Wow. That's wonderful. That is
It was amazing.
Yeah.
And so proud of that. And I don't share that with very many people because,
Yeah.
we didn't end up promoting that a lot. We just, I think we did one thing and that was that. But community really came together to support my campaign. And I really do believe because we ran such a unique campaign that people were paying attention. And the beautiful part about that experience is that in my upcoming campaigns, our immigrant community started to become citizens so they could vote for me,
Yeah.
including my parents.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So, having been in the House for 3 terms and knowing your way around,
Yes.
and now moving into the Senate,
Yes.
with a win, what are the 1 or 2 things that you feel like are on the front burner for you that have not been dealt with or were left behind in the last session that you want to address right away?
Yes. So one of the first things I want to do is related to education. We are 3 decades behind in fully funding post-secondary education. What that means is that the cost of going to college or having post-secondary opportunities, and what I want to be really clear about what that means. Post-secondary education is a trade, CTE, apprenticeship, all the way to 4-year degrees. We are not in a place where our students say, I'm ready to do CTE, apprenticeship, or go to 4 years. We're not there.
Yeah.
And that makes me really sad because we have so much talent. And when we talk about having a strong economy, well, and we're only pushing for 4-year degrees, if that's all we want to do, that means that we have to wait until our students go to, university for 4 years and then hopefully find a job after. Where I think what we need to do is help our families and students know that we have all these spectrum of educational opportunities, the trades all the way to 4 years, and help our families guide the children into those areas. Because if they're going to start work, because they're going to be able to start work in 6 months or a year, and our economy really needs certain people to start working now. And we have jobs available, and we have jobs for tomorrow, and then we need to obviously invest in jobs for the future. And I feel like we're not being strategic about that. And so that's one thing I really want to work on. The other thing is, our immigration situation it's just, our families are so scared. I grew up in Woodburn, as I mentioned, and our community is finally starting to come out again. And we see them, in our little placita. We see them buying ice cream again. But similar to 2017, we had a city desert where nobody came out. And that is so sad to know that our families are that fearful that they're not going to go to work, that their children don't want to go to school because they don't want to come home and their parents, disappear. And even parents told their children don't go to school because they were seeing in the news what ICE was doing, right? Going into our schools, which is ridiculous. Our kids should not be living in fear. Our kids should be focused on learning. And so I want to work on policies to strengthen the safety of our community. The other thing that I think is really important for us to focus on is this idea that we want to have affordable housing. We do. I think that we've done a great job at investing and creating those opportunities. But you know what? We still have families who are living in two or three families per apartment or per house. And that's not okay. In Woodburn alone, our houses are $300,000 to $500,000. How are our families supposed to afford these houses, right? And so I have to question, what does affordability really mean, right? Because affordability to me is not the same what affordability is to you.
Absolutely.
And so we need to work together to figure that out so that all of the families who need a place to call their own, that they can truly afford it. And that they have a place that their children can grow up and feel safe and know that it's not going to be taken away.
Yeah. Yeah, affordability and I think also sustainability.
Correct.
And thinking about the time might be over for having single family dwellings,
Yes.
having community dwellings and having shared spaces and where people come together. We're stuck in a model and a way of thinking that is not conducive to the times that we need, especially in Woodburn. I mean, especially where there's a need for that much housing.
Correct. We need to be innovative and we need to think outside the box and we need to bring in more revenue into the state because we're one of those states that has to balance a budget. And that is incredibly hard with the funding we have. So we need to figure out how to bring in more funding to help offset the cost of our new realities.
Yeah.
So, I'm ready. I'm antsy to get started. Just because, I know how to navigate the system. I know many of my colleagues still work there, and there's just so much to do. If it wasn't for our community who said, Teresa, we want you back. We need you. We need somebody with your thinking. I would just be focused on my own business, But my mom had reminded me several times that growing up was always helpful, right? I was helping my families, other families, and that was my gift to help.
Well, this is why it's just so important that we get you, because I'm not trying to try not to cry, but you were a 4-year-old who was robbed of having a childhood. I mean, you were a child, but you didn't get that essence until that sweet angel gave you guys that pause where you had that land to play and be children, but you still had the interruption of going and doing adult things for your parents. And so you have so many lived experiences where people are at this table making all of these judgments, not considering the little child who's navigating adult situations and the parents who are trying to keep their children young and innocent, but relying on them.
Yes.
Like it's the essence of surviving America. And so to not have you at that table when we have the populations that are begging for you. Would just be a vast injustice for us not to vote for you. And I just wish I was in your district so I could vote for you. But best believe, I'm talking to all my people in that area, but we need you so bad. Because I think this would also be healing for you as well.
Completely. Completely. And, and I feel like I continue to get gifts when students tell me, or when I go out and talk to young people, and they tell me, that's my experience too. I'm the oldest, and I have to do all the interpretation and translation. I have to cook and clean. I have to watch my brothers and sisters. And that means that our systems are not working.
Right.
We need to make sure we have language access agencies so that our kids can stay in school and we're not pulling them out to go interpret for their families.
Absolutely.
We need to have child care systems that are affordable. We live in a child care state, desert. Right? We don't have enough childcare providers. And it's not that they're not training, it's that we have such a complicated system that it makes it so hard to have, these services.
Yeah.
And so it just, yes, when I come back. and you're right. It's a way for me to heal from the things I experienced, because then I'm problem solving.
Yeah. And it's not the same thing, but I'm assuming you would be in favor of the universal pre-K.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because that's a huge chunk of that time. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because guess who took care of my brothers and sisters when they couldn't go to daycare when they were sick?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was that person.
Yeah.
And I love school, and I hate it when my parents would say, "Today we need you to stay home because your brother is sick and the daycare's not going to take him." Okay. I mean, I had no choice, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I did my duty as the eldest in my family, and my sense of responsibility obviously helped my family get through a lot of things. But as you mentioned, I also lost a lot of my own childhood, and thankfully, I am I have a little dude, a little guy, who with my ex-partner, he has a son, and he helps me be a kid because we go do a bunch of fun things.
Yeah.
And so I get to experience being a kid through him and with him.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. And it's such an important thing that most people that look like me don't think about, is that our institutions have all been set up by people that look like me. And so to me, the more people that are in those institutions that can break down people's preconceived notions of what things are.
Yeah.
So working in education, I've always been aware, even when I wasn't aware, that when kids are out of school,
Yeah.
oftentimes they're not out of school for themselves.
That's right.
If you pay careful attention to who they are and what they talk about, they're at home because their family needs them to be at home.
That's right.
And they don't have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And yet our system sees them as absentees,
That's right.
And delinquents.
And so I think it's really important to have people making laws that have had those lived experiences. And Oregon is kind of bereft. It's like absent of people of color in leadership positions that can make rules. So,
Well, and it's the tale of two childhoods. Those who are privileged to have a childhood where it is aimless and the world's your oyster, and then the other where children have to help their parents navigate and they have to pick up the pieces because the system isn't set up to let a child be a child if they are of certain marginalized communities.
Correct.
yeah.
So we need to preserve this and help our children.
Teresa, with just a couple minutes left, would you
Yes.
like to just take a moment to address your community, your Senate District 11, and give them a final message from you before they go to vote with their mail-in ballots?
Thank you for that opportunity. Well, I want to say to House District or Senate District, sorry, we were talking about my serving. So Senate District 11, it would be just an honor to represent you. I I have such a vast lived experience perspective that I know I would be able to represent this district in a way that no one else could. And I am an extremely hard worker.
Yes, you are.
I have passed some of the most historical policies that we've had in a very long time during my time as a state legislator, and I can absolutely commit that I will continue to do that work moving forward. So please vote for Teresa Alonso Leon. If you want to learn even more about me, you can go to my website at teresa4senate.com. And we only have until the 19th for people to vote. So please vote. And of course, you can reach out to me if you have any questions through our website, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that people have. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you so much.
Teresa, thank you for being here today. Thank you for sharing what is a difficult thing to share with your constituents and with us. So we really appreciate that.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
And that is another episode of Oregon Voices.
Check